Yo, 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 what up, fuckers? Welcome to the Lyricist podcast. You're not rocking with your man, Lyricist. I got a special guest here today, Mark from Making My Mark. What's going on with you, homie?
Nothing much. Just chilling here. We've been needing to do this for quite some time. Back when I was doing my own podcast, Markout Mania, back earlier
I
this year
blame
in the
you.
last. Yep. And but yeah, you were a part of there, and that was actually a pretty good episode. It was different than most of the guests that I was interviewing during that time. So yeah, this has been a long time coming, and here we are.
Yes, sir. So we're gonna talk a little bit about everything, but before we get started, tell everybody more about you and what you do.
All right, so there's two things that I'm very passionate about. That is music and professional wrestling. Those are the two things that I can probably keep branching on and on and on. Now, because I have all this versatile, I guess you can say, knowledge about these two things, does that mean I know everything? No, there's still so many things that I could still find out in both professional wrestling, music, things that I might have missed and whatnot, and things that other people are informing me about. Like I'm willing to even, learn that too. I'm not saying that I know everything.
No, I mean it's just one of those things. It's like when you're passionate about something, it's not about knowing everything. You're a student of it. So
Yep.
as long as you're willing to learn, then you always be a student of the game. I mean, I've been doing hip hop. I've been part of the music industry for over 20 years, and I'm still
Yeah.
learning shit. So
Yeah.
trust
And
me.
there's a
It is.
difference between opinions and facts. And that's something that a lot of people who like both of those two things need to know too, is there's a
Mhm.
difference between opinion and fact.
Yeah, you've seen me clash with people
Oh yeah.
about it. I'm like, look, yeah, you can say it from a fan point of view, but is it factual? It's okay to be so passionate about something to the point to where it is you become a little diluted. But if it's something that you can support with some facts, no one can argue. But if you don't have the facts, then you're just somebody rambling like a fucking stand. So
Most of the people in my generation, I can admit that.
yeah,
Yes.
well, yeah. Uh, I won't be taking shots at generations today.
I'm not gonna go that. I'm not gonna go
um,
that rabbit hole today.
nope. I've seen a lot of what's the word I wanted to use? I'm trying to be nice about it. Yeah, they don't know shit.
I mean, the internet can help with some of the
It
cases, but
can.
you also can't believe everything on the internet either. So it's a double-edged kind of situation, right?
Yeah, it's like trying to debate Tupac's, like, for example, like Tupac's worth in hip hop, his value in hip hop, his legacy, and arguing with somebody that thinks Kodak Black is the fucking goat, or like Playboy Cardi. Oh, Tupac is trash in comparison to this guy. Like, what?
Yeah.
I stop at what? It's just weird to me. So who's your favorite artist, like hip hop wise?
Okay, so I've always been I obviously know there is a little bit of distinct difference between hip hop and just rap in general, because rap
Mm,
is rhythm and poetry. Hip hop's kind of a little bit different style. But if we're gonna kind of just talk about that whole culture as a whole, I mean, my top three are probably Lil Wayne, Eminem, and my third always changes. It's been from J. Cole to Kendrick to even Drake at some points. Now this with 2024. Kendrick has probably been a part of that quite a bit. So,
yeah, I mean I get that too, and you know what? I want to talk about Wayne and M, and the absolute amount of disrespect they've both been receiving in 2024. It's just like I don't understand like what the fans nowadays see as greatness, because you have a lot of them that's saying that Eminem is not in that conversation with greatest of all time, that he doesn't belong in that conversation. And you also have the ones that say that Wayne doesn't belong in that conversation. And what are your thoughts on those statements in regards to Wayne and M?
well, so here's the thing. I don't want to go down like too much of a rabbit hole, but a lot of people do try to put Eminem that the only reason why he's as great as people say he is because of his
Just say because he's white.
race, because of his race.
Yeah.
But and then there's that I'll tell you how that's false, because if it was because of the race thing, then Mac Miller, G Easy, Machine Gun Kelly, Tom McDonald and his tattooed ass. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, that guy's a fucking loser.
Okay,
Good.
but in all those people would make it just as big as Eminem did if it was a race thing. Am I wrong?
And that's factual. Yeah. I mean, fucking Logic is half black and he still catch shit like a white boy. So, you know,
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, is Eminem's music great as it was back then? No, I will say the Eminem Show, nothing, in my opinion, that's not everybody's favorite. Usually, some people say Slim Shady LP or Marshall Mathers LP, which Marshall Mathers LP is my second. But
yeah.
like, yes, he's not going to have some as great as that, especially within the times that we have nowadays and whatnot. It's not going to be the same, and because the way that music is traded in a sense nowadays, it's not through CDs or anything like that. It's all you can just download or find videos on YouTube of the song.
Right. And I
So
think that's where most of the disconnection is because people think that he's just rambling words. And if they actually take the second to process what he's saying, because they're like, oh yeah, he never has anything important to talk about. I don't want to hear about 9-inch nails in your eyelids and blah, blah. I'm like, but the thing is, it's like if you think about the stories that he has told, did you guys pay attention? Till I Collapsed was a story. Toy Soldier was a story. Clean
yeah,
Out My Closet was a story. The Way I Am was a story. So it was all great shit, but you got to give it more than what you hear on the surface. Make it past his commercial shit. Go ahead.
yeah, and that's another thing is like some people be like, oh, we've already heard the story about him and his mom. Yeah, but have you heard the story about how they were actually on pretty decent terms? Well, not gonna say like they're on the best terms, but
Yeah.
they started having a little bit more of a bond than what it was back then. That's why the song Headlights came out, because
Yeah,
that showed the
exactly.
difference between how much he regretted and whatnot, and not being able to see his daughter, like his grandma not being able to see his daughter as much as she was growing up, which
Mhm.
he's told the story about not being able to see his own daughter many times. He still did on this recent Death of Slim Shady album. He talked
Yeah.
about like if he were to die the next day, this is the song that she would need to hear, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like,
Yeah. And
I don't know.
it's just like, and it's they give him hell, but I'm like, okay, all right. Now I will say that Wayne as a lyricist, he never really had a story to tell. He's been a part of the game since he's like 12 years old, but he's never had like a significant story to tell. So if you want to have that argument about any artist, you can have that argument about Wayne. Now, what does it take away from Wayne's skill set? No, it does not. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if you want to have that argument about an artist not having like, the content, or the subject matter, you can make that argument about Wayne, but you can't make it about him.
Mm-mm.
So, I even say the same thing. It's like, they shit on him about his content matter, but I'm like, okay, did you guys hear what was said, you know, uh, on Renegade? How he had to defend himself, against the hip hop, community, the purists, the news, and everything else. And people see this shit like, oh yeah, he's an Eminem fan. It doesn't matter what the fuck I am. I am going to tell the truth about hip hop though. So, what's your thoughts overall though?
My thoughts overall, though, is that, like, for instance, I just told you who my two favorite artists were.
Mhm.
Just because I told you those are my two favorite artists doesn't mean that I can't critique them either.
Right.
I'm not going to just say everything they do is absolutely great. If it's
Exactly.
trash, it's
It's trash.
trash. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, I haven't liked any of Wayne's albums since probably the mid 2010s,
Yeah.
probably right before the Birdman stuff happened. That's probably the last time I really thoroughly enjoyed a Wayne album, and maybe
Yeah.
just because I was in my teenage years at that point. But even then, like, still, like, that doesn't mean like for instance, the last few years, there's so many Wayne songs I don't even like. Now, has he been coming out with a lot of features over the last like 4 years? Oh yeah, he's been on all sorts of people's music, and some of it's good. Like his stuff with Corday is not too bad. That's probably some of his best feature work. But then you do have some of his other works with the likes of Lil Baby and like
Yeah.
what's that one that he did, the trust fund babies or whatever? What was that? What rapper was that with? That whole collab album he did.
You talking about with 2 Chainz?
No, not that. Which, by the way, Color Grove 2 not as good
Yeah.
as the first one.
Yeah.
Um, which that's technically a Two Chains album because of obviously the issues with that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what was it? I don't. It's Trust Fund Babies, I think, is what the album's called. But anyways, yeah, that wasn't
I
that
missed
great
that one.
either. That wasn't that great either. That came out around a few years ago, and it's just like just because I like these artists doesn't mean I can't critique them and that everything is so great. If my favorite artist is coming out with bad music, I'm gonna say it wasn't that great. Same thing if I watch a movie and my favorite actor's on there, I'm like, this isn't a movie I'm gonna watch again. That's
Yeah,
not a movie I'm
it's
gonna
like that
watch
Eminem
again.
album. It wasn't Recovery. It's one that came after Recovery. What is it?
Uh, are we talking about Marshall Mathers LP2 or are we
No,
talking
no, no.
about
The other one, the other re one. What was the other? It was that
Relapse before
not
recovery?
Relapse. So it's Relapse, Recover,
Revival. Oh, your revival.
Revival. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one I do want to forget about.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's like, yeah, people are asking for him to be more conscious, but it's like, do you really want a conscious M? Because when he tried to give you a conscious M, y'all didn't want it. So I didn't want it because I didn't want that for him because I'm like, dude, you've been doing this shit for the longest. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like with all these things that are being said, some of these people say, like for instance, these are my favorite rappers. Like you asked me, that doesn't mean everybody else has to think the same either. If someone's gonna say Eminem or Wayne's trash, I'm gonna be like, okay, you're okay to think that. Will I question it? Yeah, because I want to see why you think they're trash. And if you just say, oh, they just mumble too much, or oh, he raps too fast, or whatever, and it's just like, okay, yep, I can tell you don't actually listen to the music enough.
Yeah, it's just weird to me, man. People share their opinions and they do it from a short-sightedness. And it's like you got to actually give it a little bit more than just like, heavy critiques. I got a child screaming in the back because I'm home working. So so I'm trying my best to tune that shit out, but hey,
You're
it
good.
is what it is. We're live, we're rolling. So I
Um,
survived Christmas.
yep. So when people, for instance, if someone my age were to question what you think about, let's say, for instance, I think in one of your recent podcast episodes, you talked about the likes of LL Cool J being actually a really solid rapper. Like what's kind of made you had these thoughts? Is it just because that was part of your era, or you're willing to give the people before a grace kind of thing, like give them a shout out? What is this whole motive? I don't want mean to make this seem bad, but motive and whatnot. Like what is the reason behind you saying that kind of statement?
Which now say it one more time about the statement. Not what about LL being who he is. No,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, so what I shared was, what he said, his importance to hip hop, and I understood what he was saying. I kind of felt like it was a lot, but it was just one of those things where I felt like people need to understand the importance of LL Cool J, and like I said earlier, Tupac. Yeah, so my thoughts for like LL was like understanding what he's contributed to hip hop. I understand what he said in the interview. It kind of took people back a little bit because he was saying that he's one of the most important figures. He's one of those important figures, and I agree with it. But I also understand that over time things in hip hop will change. So I will
Mhm.
always give a certain level of grace to the artists that you know came before the current artists. The respect that I extend to them is because they earned it. You know, Before there was Drake, there's LL Cool J. Before it was Jay Z, it was LL Cool J. So things that little components that Jay Z took from LL, it's like the flashiness and the street element. Jay had that component. Speaking to the ladies, Drizzy had that. He has that appeal. The lyricism, it trickled down to Eminem and Lil Wayne. So understanding that component before LL, there was Rakim. There were some components that LL took from Rakim's game, even Big Daddy Kane
Some of these
and
names
Kool
you're
Moe too.
saying Eminem has shouted out in his songs, right?
Exactly.
Rakim and LL Cool J. So yeah.
Yeah. So these are people that you got to take it back. Now the game has evolved, but I also we're looking at a period where it's de-evolving too. So there's less lyricism, there's less skill that's being used. It's more the beat has to carry the artist now, more so the artist carried the beat. LL never had to worry about that. Eminem never had to worry about that. Now that's one of people's major complaints when it comes to Eminem and Nas is that their production was never the greatest, but you can always remember their lyrics. And I don't get that from a lot of artists nowadays. So it's like I can give, some leeway to some of the artists that's actually doing that shit, like the Denzel Currys, the Cordays, the JIDs, J. Cole, you know, uh Kendrick, and Wayne, not Wayne, Drake to a degree. Those are artists that's actually, complimenting it, like the production. So it's a balance, but I'm not seeing that with a lot of artists. So what is your thoughts?
My That's understandable, and like I remember that I'm not to try to like pivot because this is kind of within the same conversation.
Yeah.
Uh, do you ever have a problem with too much samples being used? Because that's obviously what gets used in a lot of rap music too. Like even back then they used samples, but
Mhm.
definitely now with today's, like for instance, you have a lot of female rappers using like old '90s and whatnot hip hop beats. You already know what I'm talking about. Like I think Megan Thee Stallion has multiple songs where she's using like Easy E songs and whatnot as the sample and whatnot. Do you have
Yeah.
a problem with that kind of being a part of I guess a lot of the modern rap today?
It's been a part of hip hop for the longest. It's been a part of music for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you look at the Katy Perry's, they sample. So it's like a lot of the artists that that has like hit records, they sample some of the greatest shit like before them. So it's like I can sit up here, I can go for days, but it's like a lot of the artists don't know how to have original production because it's not really on them, it's on the producers. And when the record labels bring in the producers to make these massive hits, it's most likely going to be a sample on there somewhere. If it could be the sound, like from the drum kicks all the way to the clips from like some
The,
hit that we all know from back in the day, which
the original
automatically
audio,
gives,
the
yeah, the
original
original
audio
audio.
playing. Yeah.
And if it was a hit back in the days, it's guaranteed to be a hit nowadays because it's a cheat code. Because if it was a massive hit back in the days, it's going to, oh, I remember that song. Yeah, 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 yeah. And then when people kind of like hear it again, it reignites the hit, but for a different artist.
And see, that's actually because, like, what I think about that, like, I'm kind of with you. And, like, there's even times where I'm listening to these songs, I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar. That
Hmm.
sounds so familiar. Like, we were just talking about off air before we started recording. We talked about a song and how I was like, I feel like I've heard this song before, but I
Hmm.
haven't, which that wasn't about a sample. That was just about the song we were talking about. But then
Right.
I'll hear, like, this song and I'm like, oof, I'm curious if I can find the exact song. And then when I actually found, I'm like, oh yes, I knew that song. That sound sounded familiar. And then it helps me appreciate it. It's not like I'm like, oh, they just copied and whatnot. Like it's not a copy if you can tell that there's an kind of an homage or like trying to like show that yes, we did use this sound from
Right.
this long ago and whatnot. That's why you always used to see these videos where it'd be like a 1970s singer. You would see a random singer on a podium and whatnot and singing, and then it would go to that hit song that you're used to hearing the actual song of
Hmm.
that you're thinking of. And it's just like it's been a part of hip hop the whole time.
Oh
And
yeah.
like that's kind of like because I know like obviously there's like a 20 I think close to 20 year, maybe there is a 20-year difference between me and you.
Hmm.
But like not to make you sound old, by the
It's
way.
fine.
That's not what I was trying to do. But like
Doesn't bother me.
but that's why I can still appreciate music nowadays is when they do that, I
Hmm.
am sometimes very appreciative of it. Now, is there times where I'm just like, okay, like I can tell you just wanted to try to get your song to be a hit.
Hmm.
So you use this one beat that we all know is familiar kind of thing.
Yeah, try hard shit.
Yeah.
You
And it's
you
just like,
you can always tell who the try hards are.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
Uh,
like I'm listening to some of this shit nowadays. I'm like, man, that shit suck. I was like, because I know bad production. I know bad writing too. And I can say, this gonna piss some people off. For all the dogs was it bad? It was bad.
oh,
It
it was.
it's just like I'm listening to this shit. I'm like, this is a bunch of try hard shit.
Yeah, and then there's some people who are big Drake fans who
Mm,
can't stand Kendrick and be like, "Oh, but what about Mr. Morale and Big Steppers?" I'm not gonna pretend like it was my favorite album, but
yeah,
I have at least more playable songs on the album than For All the Dogs.
yeah,
I have maybe two on there, and they both have a feature in it. It's first person shooter is
yeah,
one of them. Like,
yeah.
come on.
I mean, and that's just I'm not gonna turn this to drag Drake fest, but
I'm sorry, I may be
no,
opening a can of
no.
worms here,
I'm
but
trying my best because it's like it's so easy to go down that road. It's a rabbit hole for me because it's like Drake has all this talent, right? And I know
Mhm.
he's the big guy, but man, oh man, I could tell that he was just having shit handed to him. He got so high up, the expectation was for it to be cooked up for him, and all he had to do is put his vocals to it. I've seen that shit before in studios, man. I don't care how big the celebrity is. If I start naming names, then it's like people like, oh god damn, really? Who wrote for that person? I'll never tell.
Yeah,
I'll never tell. But you guys will find out soon if it's a fucking tell all come
yeah.
out. So yeah, no, I've seen a lot of shit, man. So yeah.
Well, and like I can go on like I'm obviously, like I said, Drake has been considered in my top 3 or top 5. So like
Mm,
obviously I have liked his music quite a bit throughout my lifetime. So like I'm still able to put that on there, but again, like I went and said about my two favorite rappers originally,
mm,
just because I've liked a rapper before doesn't mean I can't like them now, or vice versa, because
mm,
opinions can change. Music is what's that word, subjective. That
yeah,
means it can change, it's all opinion based for the most part. Like anybody can like it however they want to like it.
right.
There is no one determined way to like this exact thing. So
Exactly. So let's talk about your content now.
okay.
So we all know that TikTok may go away. So what's the plan? Like which direction you plan on going with your content?
So as far as that goes, I don't know. I probably will put a lot of my stuff to YouTube, and I may start working into Twitch.
Mhm,
I do have both a personal Instagram and a more branded account Instagram.
mhm,
So like, and TikTok has definitely helped me create a little bit more of a following. I will say that. So it's not
mhm,
like I'm saying, well, no big deal for me. TikTok's going away, maybe no big deal. I'm not saying that at all. I as where I'm going to move my making my mark, I guess, stuff and like branding and whatnot will probably be through YouTube, which I already
yeah,
kind of have. But eventually, I will have to shuffle away into making it an actual making my mark thing versus most of my YouTube stuff is me playing video games. And it's
yeah,
hard to match a more content talking creative base versus a video game base, because you
yeah,
kind of always have to separate the two. YouTube is very hard with the algorithm. Same thing with TikTok at sometimes. One
mhm,
moment you can make something and thousands upon thousands of people will start scrolling on your video and seeing it. Other
mhm.
times you'll have maybe 20 people within the first 3 hours seeing it.
Right. That's true. That's true.
And
I've put some testers out there recently because I've been dropping videos for like over a month and a half now, and it's like I was doing like what like anywhere between 5 and 10,000 views. I just put some new shit out there to see how it does, just to test the algorithm and see where it's going. And I'm like, ooh, those look like some duds right there.
well,
that
and
didn't work out all that
and
well.
even TikTok is actually what brought us like together, like to
Yeah.
know each other. I brought you on my podcast. I'm now on
Hmm.
your podcast now. So like there's obviously been connections I've made since this app has been a part of, my career or branding, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
So, but for now, it's kind of one of them things. I don't want to exactly say, oh, yep, that's exactly what I'm doing, because then if that's what I'm planning for and then it doesn't happen, I'm just going to be let down.
Yeah.
But I already have YouTube stuff, so I already know that that's kind of something I've already kind of said, yeah, that will be my backup option.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and I tell anybody like, look, you just if it doesn't go anywhere, still build something else behind that. Take the the fan base that you build on TikTok and move it around. Have them follow you to your Discord. Have them follow you to your Twitch. Have them follow you to your YouTube. I want to start doing lives on Instagram just to, change it up a little bit. It's just being able to have a plan when things go awry. People should always have backup plans for everything.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. You have to like do it like a two-way thing. You have to have a plan,
Hmm.
but also make sure that that plan isn't like something that you're gonna have to waste so much money that you don't have. Like for instance, let's say, within the end of the year, let's
Hmm.
say it's already January 2025. Within the end of the year, I'm gonna buy myself a house. Yes, you can have that plan, but make sure you know you'll be able to afford that plan,
Hmm.
because when that time comes and let's say you don't have that money, you're going to be let down. But the thing is have baby steps, right? Start with those baby steps and then make your way into there. But then also don't just shoot on making it a definite plan, and then when it doesn't happen, it let you down because you made it a definite plan.
Right.
So it's one of them things that be happy where you're at kind of thing, and like whenever it comes to goals, also make sure that there's a backup plan, but also don't get too like sad or mad about your goal not being able to be accomplished, because you still can find ways to make that either work or find another backup plan, right?
Right. Hmm. Yep. I mean, I agree 100%. I see a lot of people like, oh, I'm losing my income. You should have took some of that income and put it somewhere else. It's called marketing. You got to market yourself.
Marketing.
You got
Yep.
to. It just doesn't just stick to this one thing. It's like, I tell people, I'm like, look, I got a whole fucking studio I'm getting ready to open up at the beginning of the year. I'm not just focused on TikTok. TikTok is cool, but being able to do more, you got to think
Yep.
outside the box.
And that's one of the things, like as for what it seems like for the both of us, we're not making TikTok our end all be all kind of thing to where,
Hmm.
I'm going to be nowhere now because TikTok may possibly not be here anymore. Look at all the
Exactly.
people who are part of Vine. Yeah, some of them were one and done kind of situations, but then
Yeah.
some of them moved on into being a bigger branded situation. Look at the Logan Pauls of the world. Look at
Yep.
all those kind of similar people. Some of
Hmm.
those people started in Vine and whatnot, and these lower, video stuff where there wasn't constant people in their 10s and 12s and 13-year-olds and older all
Hmm.
using that.
Yep.
TikTok, everybody basically uses that. So you've
Yep.
already had a good enough help for if it were to just blow away and not be here anymore, you
Hmm.
could still find a way to make it work.
Yep. Yep. Hey, no, I agree, man. I agree. So I'm gonna close it out with this. So if you had any advice with handling the content, because you have two types of content, which is awesome. I look, I know a lot about wrestling, but I also know a lot of people that's doing that content. So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna touch that. So you and one other guy I know that does it, and I mean, you guys do it well. So like
Thank you.
managing the content when you have like two different types, hip hop and wrestling. Like, is there one that you prefer over the other? Like mostly.
uh, So, if you guys know my TikTok, which is Reality of Entertainment, my basis or my big plan when I changed my name to that was
Hmm.
to base it over the reality, the facts, and the connections behind TV shows to real life or anything like that. For instance, I've talked about samples within music, with wrestling. I talk about, oh, this made a connection to this wrestler, or this was a this, and then here's the facts of 2024 that you probably didn't even know about, and it just basically went past through your mind or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, as far as I've never really had a one or the other, and I think that's actually my problem, because I feel like I don't mean to like talk bad about or be down on myself about this, but I feel
Hmm.
like my branding isn't the best. I think I'm a better speaker about what I want to do or what I can try to do
Hmm.
versus actually being able to make it happen.
Hmm.
But that's kind of how a lot of us humans are, right? Like we're better teachers than we are being a follower of our own teachings.
Right.
So
Yeah. It sounds good. You're forced to do it. I hear you. But that right there is a lesson in itself, you know. And that was pretty much the question I started out with, but you kind of led into, some truths as well. So how do you plan on improving that come 2025?
How do I plan on improving that? Well,
Mhm.
I don't think I'm going to make too many promises, because if you try to make a promise, then everybody's going to keep you on that thing. Like, okay, he's saying he's going to do this, but is he
Mhm.
going to do that? I'm just going to keep all my ideas within a notebook or within my mind. And then when
Mhm.
I'm ready for that to be released, I will release that right when I can release that. So, like for instance, if I'm trying to plan a certain special video, I'm going to make sure I already have that recorded and then announce that to everybody.
Right.
Because I like things to be authentic. I don't like to, like for instance, when it comes to podcasts, you don't want somebody who has a script and knows exactly what they're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with my videos. I like them to be authentic,
Mhm.
because not taking shots at anybody and not doing that at all. But there are people on YouTube, reactors and whatnot. There's so many people within the world that just go at something, and that's not even their real reaction. Sometimes that's them trying to just, I don't
Play
know
it
how to
out.
react, so I'm going to just play it out because that's what I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do. Me, I want to make sure I am focused and engaged in that thing that I'm doing, so then you have that full authentic feel and reaction. You can be like, that's so real.
Yeah.
Like you feel it, and then it may inspire someone else to do that same thing that I'm doing, because that's
People.
what I want to keep doing. It's like a, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
like
no,
a
no, no.
like a
No, you're
food
fine.
chain. A food chain will go from this to this to this, and even evolution, when you see, oh, it started with a with this and this and this, and as the family species and whatnot go on, it starts and keeps going and going. I want that to be someone else. Like for instance, there's people before me,
Mhm.
and they're influenced, that they influence me, and then eventually I'll influence someone else.
Yep.
But as far as the 2025 goes, I'm not going to hold my breath on anything. I'm just going to let it play out, and then go from there, kind of thing.
Yeah. I always tell people stay away from resolutions. Resolutions are fake. It's a way to let yourself down. And the only thing I can say is just creating a habit of having good habits. So if you're going to be recording your content, make sure you dedicate an hour to 3 hours to recording your content. Make sure it's something you connect with, and it can always be organic. And that's what I've got myself into. Just that, if I have something on the schedule, follow through. If I have something on the books, get it done. Just don't have myself walking around stressing out over all my mental notes. Just get it done. you know and I know it sounds good in theory, and it's probably make awesome clips for somebody else, but that's just the way I live, man. It's 168 hours in a week. How the fuck are you using your time? So you got to maximize on those hours. Create as much content as you want. Fucking 10 hours worth of content going to wrestling, 10 hours of content going towards hip hop. Read up on all that stuff throughout. That's my advice to you.
Yeah.
Just find a, whatever you come across, whatever's exciting that week. I mean, what you get, like two shows out the week with WWE, right? So 3 shows now.
But basically, I mean, they do have the developmental, but obviously Raw and SmackDowns is what millions of people watch, just
Right.
all over the world. And they're about to hit Netflix right as soon as the
Mhm.
first year starts, right?
Yeah, and I think you should be there for that, man. I think you should be ready to just fire off some reactions, man. You know.
Yep. That's also a big thing too. I basically
Mhm.
work overnights, which does cause a lot of stagnant and not really any progression, or
Yeah.
me not making too much videos throughout the week. But
Mhm.
then, and I also live in an apartment, so I know I got to be courteous to those, because
Yeah,
I
Roger.
basically work a night owl shift, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
most of the time I'm awake is dark
Yeah.
outside, dark, dark, dark. Like there's, you can't see anything. There's nothing open, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it does make it a little bit hard, but I do know that if I want to get this done, I can't make excuses. And like, I'll take your advice you just said, and like I've watched podcasts. That's how I've actually come up with these mindsets of, oh, I
Mhm.
can't shoot for this to definitely happen, kind of thing. I watch
Right.
podcasts, and
Mhm.
they're the ones who teach me that. Just
Yeah.
because they're not there in person doesn't mean I can't teach them. They can't teach me something.
Exactly. Yep.
Same
So
thing with music. Music can teach you so much about life. and you don't even realize it.
Absolutely. All right, man. We're gonna wrap it up now. So
All
while
right.
we get out, well, before we get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
All right. You can find me as of right now, as of this recording, on TikTok. That is Reality of Entertainment. No spaces, no underscores, nothing. Reality of Entertainment. And then on YouTube and on Instagram, it is Making My Mark, which is MAK, all lowercase, by the way, MAKING underscore MY underscore M4RK. Again, that is MAKING underscore MY underscore M4RK. The money maker, the mark maker, Eric the Mark Mac. You already know.
Dope. All right, y'all. I want to thank you for watching the Lyricist podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe, share this shit. It's another great episode. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
your
having me.
time, Mark.
Yep.
Until the next episode. I appreciate you.
Yep. Salute.